Aloha and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to discuss the filming locations that were used in episode number 11. The title is The Curse of the King Kamehameha Club, and it aired on February 19th, 1981. So without further delay, let's get started. Okay, here's an overview of the island with this episode's filming locations. Got everything from Waikiki, Honolulu, and all the way up here in Wailua. But the episode begins with a tight shot of this little home, and I'll cover the location of this home a little later in this video. But we get a look inside of the home, and we see this individual. He's got a little fire going, and he's singing or chanting something in Hawaiian. And then we see him take a King Kamehameha Club patch, and he throws it into the little fire bowl here. And then he follows that up with a picture of Rick. And then we see both items begin to wilt and burn. And then it immediately cuts to our title screen of Rick. We see Rick and Higgins. They're inside of a King Kamehameha Club board member meeting. Higgins, he wants to address some complaints that he's received from some of the members of the club, and these other board members, they look absolutely thrilled to listen to these complaints. Now this boardroom, this King Kamehameha Club boardroom, it was not filmed in the Elks Lodge. This is actually shot down at Fort Ruger, and I will drop down there and show you exactly where this scene was filmed. Drop down here. Let's see here. So this scene, this board member meeting scene, was shot inside of this room right here, and you can see this little this concrete support beam or pillar is right there, and then you can also make out the window beams here, as well as the exact same curtains. This Google archive was from 2009. This was shot in late 80, early 81, and this building in 2009 still has the same curtains up. That's pretty crazy. And you can also see, so the camera is looking up this way. And in the background, you can see that tree right there. And I believe that is that tree right there. But Higgins, he discusses these complaints. People are parking, someone is parking in the wrong parking stall. Someone's not adhering to the club dress code. And he says he's also noticed someone's charging a bunch of drinks and food to one of the club members' tabs. We also learned that the club's putting on a surf ski race. And these other board members, they motion to adjourn the meeting, and then because they want to go watch the qualifying rounds of the surf ski race. And when they get up to leave, you get a better shot of this little column here. And you can see how it's smooth here, and then you got that hard line, and then you get a more textured exterior of the column. And you can see that right there. There's the smooth section, there's that hard line, and that more textured surface right there. Pretty cool. Now, as Higgins was reading these various complaints, we get these scenes kind of simultaneously of Tom pulling the Ferrari into the wrong parking stall, and this would have been filmed about right there, street side at the Elks Lodge. He hops out of the Ferrari. We see that he's not wearing the right club attire, and he makes his way into the club. And this is kind of cool. I was able to find a current photo of this kind of exact location. In this frame, Tom was standing about right there. And this club member, she's appalled at what he's wearing. And he kind of looks around for TC a little bit. And then he makes his way up to the terrace. And we'll jump back over here. In this scene, this frame, they were sitting about somewhere in this area. And then we see TC. He makes his way over. They try to portray it as him standing about right here, looking out this way at this beach here. However, this is not where this was filmed. This scene was at this location over at the Waialae Beach Park. And to get this shot, they either had like a scissor lift or a boom lift, something set up right in this area here. And then they, took the shot behind Roger looking, try and match this up a little bit, out this way at the starting and finish line of the surf ski race. And he's checking out the contestants. He sees Henry Lewis out here. Henry is favored to win the race, and TC he tells Magnum that he's gonna bet his money on Henry Lewis, and Tom he's not too happy about that. Next, we get this scene. We see the board members coming down from their meeting. Rick, he's arranged to have a local news outlet come by and do a piece on the race that the club is having. He wants to drum up some interest in the race and the club. Higgins, he's upset about it. He doesn't want to do it. He calls it cheap commercialism of the event. And as they come down the stairs, we get this shot of the underside of the stairs. And here is a modern photo of the interior of the Elks Lodge. And definitely the same staircase there matches up perfectly. They come down the stairs here towards the news crew. And they meet up with them. This is Christine Richards. She's the reporter, doing the story. And in this scene, they were somewhere right in this area here. And she starts to conduct the interview. And it's kind of funny. Every answer that Rick gives is incomplete or wrong. And Higgins has to then provide the correct answer. And as they're doing the interview, they're approached by that same individual from the opening scene of the episode. All of this is caught, on camera. He approaches them and he starts to, again, chant something or sing something in Hawaiian. And then he takes off. And Mogi here, he tells Rick that, that guy, he was a kahuna. And that he just cursed the club and cursed, the event. From there, we get this scene. We see Henry Lewis heading out into the ocean to warm up for the race. And Tom, he's also down there on the beach doing the same thing. And again, this is right here on this beach, right in this area, right next to the Waialae Beach Park. And while Tom's down there, he gets approached by this individual. This is Charlie. And they start to discuss the race, whether or not anyone can actually beat Henry. And then Charlie heads out for his swim. Magnum starts to head out to the ocean to warm up. And then he swims up to Henry Lewis, right in this area right here. asks him if he wants to have a little one-on-one race. And this little tip of the island here is right there. And Henry, he says something like, "Who, with you?" And it kind of miffs Tom. And then they start to paddle out that way. Now, while they're having this little mini race, Rick, TC, and Tom, they are back at the club on the terrace, watching this happen, and they try to portray this race as being out here somewhere. But as they watch this race, Higgins, he's still upset about the news interview and how that went. And then TC, he notices that Magnum, he's starting to catch Henry. And Rick, he's concerned about the bet that he's going to place on the race, so he needs to see. And then as Tom starts to overtake Henry, Henry has a problem and collapses on his surf ski. And then Tom jumps in the water and starts to swim over to Henry's ski. These guys realize that something is definitely wrong here. And then they take off towards the beach, get a shot of them kind of running that way along the terrace. Next, we see that Tom has made his way to Henry, and he also notices Charlie's out there swimming, and he calls to him and asks him for help. They get a hold of Henry's ski, and they start to make their way towards shore. And again, they would have been right out here somewhere in this frame. And then you can see this part of the island right here is that part of the island there. And we also see Moki, Rick, and TC. They start to make their way towards the beach, running along this area here. This portion of this beach, the vegetation is kind of overtaking it. And then I'd also imagine that this was filmed, at low tide. But they get him up to the beach here. Let's see here, I kind of match this up a little bit. You've got just on the other side of this is Hunama Bay, just right over here. And they get him up on the beach. And you also notice the news crew, Christine's little news crew is right there when they bring him up. And she's like, "Oh, this is great, get in here," to film it. And Tom looks up at her in disgust. He's like, "He's dead." And then she kind of backs off a little bit. Next, we get this scene. Tom, he's arrived at the coroner's office. He wants to go in and try and get some answers as to, why Henry Lewis died. And this next scene was also filmed at Fort Ruger, inside the same Department of Defense building that the King Kamehameha Club board member meeting was in. And in fact, back here behind the Ferrari, so in this frame, the Ferrari is parked on the road right there. And then in the distance, you can see this little structure here. That's actually the old, very old guard shack, original Fort Ruger guard shack. Pretty cool stuff. But Tom, he exits the Ferrari and he heads up this little staircase here through these doors right there. Enters into the building and then kind of rounds the corner. Now, something I just want to point out right now that kind of helped me solve an upcoming mystery was this door here. At the top of the door, right there. It's really hard to see, but it's there. There's a little on the casing, the door casing. There's a little a nameplate, description of whatever that room is. But it's right there. It's really hard to see, but it is in fact there. As Tom makes his way into the building, it cuts to this scene. We see that Christine and her little news crew, they're already at the coroner's office, talking with the coroner. They're asking questions as to why Henry passed away. They also tell the coroner that a curse had been placed on the King Kamehameha Club, and she's asking him if it's possible that Henry Lewis could have been cursed to death. Obviously, trying to sensationalize, Henry's death. And the coroner, he says, I guess maybe if he believed in kahuna curses, perhaps it could have been a factor. And Tom, he hears this and he can't help himself. He jumps in and says, "Hey, aren't you getting a little carried away with this?" But real quick, in this shot, at first I wasn't sure. I thought maybe this might have been a set. But then on that door, I saw that same nameplate at the top, which obviously has gaff tape over the nameplate, disguising what the room actually is. And all of these would have been, these nameplates would have been put up by the film crew. But yeah, that's kind of how I determined that this is, in fact, inside of this Fort Ruger DOD building. And then Christine, she starts to ask, Tom, who are you? And he says, I'm a private investigator. And again, she takes that and tries to run with it. So you're investigating this very suspicious death. And he's like, it's not suspicious. And then he realizes, oh, I'm kind of caught here. And then we cut to this scene back at the King Kamehameha Club. Higgins, Rick, and Tom, they're all inside of Rick's office here on the upper level of the Elks Lodge. Higgins, he's watching the news footage of Tom state that he's the official club spokesman and that they're not attributing Henry's death to this curse. And Higgins, he's super annoyed that Magnum said he was the official spokesman. And Tom's like, I had to say something. You saw what she was trying to do. And then Rick, he says that, I hired Tom to investigate the death because it's making everyone in this club nervous. People aren't coming to the club. People are dropping out of the surf ski race. And then Tom, he says, well, maybe somebody wants it that way. Maybe somebody wants to take over the club. Maybe somebody wants the land. And Rick, he mentions that the land is leased. It's leased for the next 45 years. And on a complete side note, if that were the case, that would mean that the club's lease expires sometime next year in 2026. But Rick, he also starts to complain that he's not feeling well. And Tom, he's trying to eat a steak, get something to eat, when all of a sudden a fire alarm in the kitchen goes off. And then they all go racing towards the kitchen, which will take us to our first unidentified location. And this might actually be the kitchen at the Elks Lodge. However, I have not been able to confirm it. And believe me, I went looking, but I could not find any photos, any proof that this is the lodge. But Tom, he races in and he extinguishes the fire. The chef, tells Higgins that it was a grease fire and that none of the other chefs came to work that day because they're all concerned about this curse. Higgins and Rick, they're super stressed out about this whole situation, and Higgins, he threatens to have Rick removed from the board of directors, and then he storms out of the kitchen through this door. Rick says, I don't need this aggravation, and he threatens to quit the club. And then he heads out this door over here, which is kind of another clue as to where this is at. You kind of get a look into the side room here, and it almost looks like a cafeteria or a mess hall, which makes me think maybe this is filmed up at Fort Ruger as well. Yeah, I don't know. If anyone recognizes this kitchen, this cafeteria, or possible mess hall, please comment below. Next, we see Tom at the club swimming pool. He's going over to talk to Moki about the kahuna, and in this frame, Tom would have been standing right there. And then if you look in the background, you can see Charlie at one of the tables, which would have been almost exactly where that table is located. But he goes over and he asks Smokey if he knows who that kahuna was. Tom wants to talk to him. He thinks somebody put him up to his little stunt that he pulled in the club. And Moki says, "Yeah, no, I don't know him. Those guys are hard to find," and kind of plays dumb. And then Charlie comes up and says his name's Makua, and he lives on the North Shore. Then he kind of gives Moki a hard time about not being, completely truthful with Magnum. From there, we see TC and Tom driving up to the North Shore to try and meet up with Makua. And this entire next scene, it was all filmed up in Wailua. And this particular frame here, this road that they're driving on, this is the Farrington Highway. And I will drop down and match this up for you. Let's see, let's go back to 2009. And in this frame here, they are driving right along here. And as they're doing so, the camera kind of tracks them, and then it freezes on this shot of this mountain range over here. Let's see, I'll match this up. Yep, something like that. And as they're driving along, Tom, he has TC start to read this book about kahunas. And this is actually a real book. You can own it and read it. He starts to read it, and he learns that one way to tell if someone's a kahuna is sometimes they have a ruby flash that's detectable in their eye. He also gets to another part of the book that states that kahunas, they're able to perform death prayers. And he's like, "Death prayers? Hey, Tom, I don't want anything to do with this." And from here, we see them arrive at this location. We see them driving along Kelahanui Street, which is this road right here. And then if you look behind them, you can see these two buildings, which are right here. You can also make out the lighting from the ball field behind those buildings. That lighting is also right there. But we see them drive along the street, and they pull into this little country store, and they pull right up to the little porch area. But real quick, before we look at that, I just want to point one thing out right here. You can see this, I believe it's a boiler stack right there. This is the Wailua Sugarcane factory over here. But yeah, just take a look at that. And this is a huge clue in helping me find an upcoming scene here in just a few minutes. But we see them pull into the little store area, came along here, and then they pulled up to the little porch area right there. And this is no longer open as a market or a store. I'm not sure what it is today. Maybe if you know, comment. But yeah, the gas pumps would have been about right here, and they're gone. Tom, he pulls up, and he hops out. And if you look right there, yeah, it says right there, Wailua something registration. Not sure what that is. I'd love to be able to read that whole thing. But yeah, Tom, he hops out, and Says, I'm looking for a man named Makua. And TC, he's like, hey, they're not going to tell you anything. And we're going to wind up getting our butts kicked here. And we see this guy, he walks around the front of the Ferrari. And this tree right here is that tree right there. And Tom and TC, they continue to kind of argue about the situation. And finally, these guys get so tired of Tom and TC bickering that he's like, yeah, Makua, he's down there at the end of the street. And TC, he's stunned. He can't believe that it worked. And Tom, he's thrilled that it worked out. And right across the street here, this is I believe it's a Buddhist mission, and you can see like a little monument right there, and that little monument is right there. And then Tom, he jumps in the car. TC, he's still stunned. He doesn't even sit down in the seat, and Tom, he just takes off. And that will take us to our second unidentified location. We see them pulling into that house from the opening scene of the episode where Makua was burning the picture of Rick. See them pull in the driveway here, and they hop out, and they start walking up to the front porch. And so far, I have been unable to locate this house, but I will show you where I think it is. So the previous scene at the store or market, that was shot right here. And I think after that scene, they just hopped right back into this neighborhood here to shoot the house. And unfortunately, the street view options down here are so limited. All you really have is this road leading in to this area here. And I think that would explain why I cannot find this. If you look, there's a lot of big mature trees and a lot of vegetation, and you really see a lot of that right through here. Down here, I ran through all these neighborhoods. It's got pretty good street view coverage, and I cannot find it. So it leads me to believe that it is right here. But they make their way up to the front door, and as they get up there, they can hear Makua. He's in there, again, singing or chanting something in Hawaiian. They let themselves in. And again, TC, he's like, he grabs these shark teeth, and he's like, Tom starts to argue with him. He says, everything's going to be fine. He has no power over us. He can't harm us. And as they're arguing, again, Makua, he gets up, and he slips out the back door. And they're like, oh no. Tom chases him out the back door, and TC, he makes his way out the front along the side of the house. And then Makua, he slips out into the sugarcane field where they're harvesting the sugarcane. They're burning the field. Tom chases after him, and TC does the same thing. And while they're in there, there's a backfire, and they kind of get lost and trapped a little bit. Start to find their way out of the field. Then we get this scene with Christine. She's calling for her cameraman. She's saying, they're over here. And we see Tom and TC emerge from the sugarcane. And then if you look in the background, right there, I'm certain that is that boiler chimney stack that I showed you earlier that was at the sugarcane plantation. They emerge from the sugarcane, and Tom, he says, hey, Makua's in there, and he runs over to Christine's car to call for help on the radio. And Christine, she springs into action. She starts filming, and she's trying to, again, tie this situation, this incident to the King Kamehameha Club and to Tom. He finishes calling for help, and he starts to make his way over to TC. And kind of a funny line here. She says, who are you and how are you involved in this? And TC, he says, reluctantly. But if I go back to that initial shot with the boiler stack in the background, with that, I think I can kind of figure out where this is at. Maybe. So, again, the market is right there. Makua's house, I believe, is right in here. And then I think that this road here, this little curve, is possibly this curve here. And it lines up. It lines up with that boiler. That boiler is right there where my arrow is. And this little curve in the road is right here. And yeah, it almost lines up perfectly. Yeah, that is that. I'm almost certain that that this sugarcane fire scene was shot in here somewhere. Next, we see everyone back at the club up here in Rick's office, and they're watching another one of Sydney's reports, news reports. And we learn that Makua, he passed away in the sugarcane field. He didn't make it out alive. And Sydney's doing, again, everything she can to tie his death to the club and to Tom. And Higgins, he looks like he's about to have an aneurysm over the whole thing. He can't take it anymore, and he runs over and he turns the TV off. Real quick, I want to show you a photo that I found of the interior of Rick's office today. And yeah, there's a modern photo, kind of the same angle, looking out at the terrace and into the ocean. And TC, he's like, well, maybe the curse died with Makua. He seems kind of relieved about it. But Rick, he's still not feeling well, and he says that whatever it is, it's getting worse. And then Tom says, this has to go back to the land. He says, I think somebody wants to break the club's lease. And the only person that would benefit from that was whoever owns the land. So he says, hey, I'm going to go up and I'm going to talk to the owner. It's a man named Sidney Dollinger. And that will take us to our next location here. And we'll pop up there now. This next scene, it was filmed at the Walker Estate, right here. And I'll drop down and match this up as best I can. Unfortunately, it's really overgrown right through this area, but you can kind of make out the house here. You can see the roof line there, and then you can also see just a section of these pillars right there. But Tom, he pulls up to the front door here, goes up, and he's greeted by Mr. Dollinger's nurse. And in the background, it's kind of funny. You can hear him, calling for her. He says, "I can't take my medication without my beer." And she has his beer ready to go. However, it's just the can is just full of water. Goes back and she introduces Sydney to Tom, and she leaves. He's able to take his medication here, and then he offers Tom a real beer. He's got a real stash of beer back behind his chair. And Tom, he asks Sydney about the land, and Sydney, he says immediately says, "Oh, she's always after that land." He says, "My daughter, she wants the land, she wants to develop it." Tom immediately that gets his attention, and then Sydney, he kind of goes on and on about how he just wants that land for the people. He doesn't want to make money off of it, and he kind of gets really weak, and he becomes, less alert. And Tom, he's no longer able to get, any information out of him. So Tom, he makes his way out of the house, heads over to Mrs. McCow here, and Tom asks, how can I get in touch with Sydney's daughter? And she tells Tom, Sydney only has one daughter, and she died 15 years ago. And Tom's like, oh, well, there goes that lead. And from here, we go back to the King Kamehameha Club. Tom and Rick, they're up here on the terrace. Rick looks like he's about ready to die. And, Magnum says, there's nothing to this. He says, we're just all letting superstition get the better of us. He says, for instance, earlier today, I was blaming an 80-year-old man for wanting to break the lease. And Rick says, well, it doesn't matter. It's almost his anyway. 5 more members want to quit the club. Nobody wants to be around this place. And then Tom, he gets up and looks out, and he sees Charlie out there swimming. And Tom says, not everybody. And this will take us to our next location, back at the Wailea Beach Park. Tom, he's becoming a little suspicious of Charlie here, and he wants to know, why isn't any of this kahuna stuff having an effect on you? You're Hawaiian. And Charlie says, there are people to be afraid of and people not to be afraid of. And he says, Makua, he was not someone to be afraid of. And then while they're having this conversation, we see Higgins walking along the beach towards them, and he tells Magnum that Rick has collapsed, and they're taking him to the hospital. And then Tom, he takes off, running back along the beach this way, which will take us to our next location here at the Kapiolani Medical Center, right here. And this medical center, it's been rebuilt, redeveloped. So to match this up, we need to go back in time here a little bit. Let's see here. Go back to 2006, and we'll be able to match this up. So in this frame, the ambulance would have been about right here. And then we see it pull up to the emergency room entrance right here on this red brick area. And you can still make that out right there from the satellite view. Watch them do that. They offload Rick, and they take him into the medical center. And the doctor says, oh, no, you two, you have to wait out here. And while they're waiting, Tom looks up, and here she comes. And he's like, oh, no. She starts to interview Tom. She's asking, is Rick's illness tied to the curse? And Magnum, he's had it. He smacks the camera away, and TC comes over and restrains him. And then the doctor finally comes back out, and they start to ask about Rick's condition. And she says, we're still running tests. We don't know. And then TC mentions, man, he just cramped up and fell over. And Tom, he kind of has a realization that, hey, this is the exact same thing that happened to Henry Lewis. So he goes over to the phone, and he calls the coroner, and he asks him, hey, have you made any progress on what killed Henry? And he says, only thing we found so far is he had an extremely low potassium count. And Tom asks, well, what caused that? And the coroner says, well, if he was on a diuretic, any type of diuretic medication, that could potentially cause it. And on a side note, this scene here, I am positive that this is back at the 50 soundstage. Just a little set that they threw up. You can almost see, these almost look like flats that they put up right here. And then this is the exact same phone that's inside of the guest house. So I'm almost positive that this was filmed back at the 50 soundstage, and it had to have been kind of strange for Herman Wedemeyer here. He played Duke on Hawaii 50 for many, many, many years, and for him to be back in the stage and have all the 50 sets gone and the Magnum sets built, it had to have been kind of strange for him. Tom, he goes back over to the doctor and says, check Rick for a low potassium count. And then he turns and he takes off and says, I'll be right back. Next, we get this evening shot of Tom. He's driving back up to Sidney Dollinger's house. He wants to see if that medication he was taking, if it was a diuretic. And we get this shot of Tom driving up Round Top Drive right here. And the camera follows Tom as he drives up the road right here. And then it freezes on this shot of the city. I can match that up. Yeah, something like that. Next, we see Tom arrive at Mr. Dollinger's home, pulling right along here, and then he heads up and makes his way into the house to Sydney's bedroom, and he runs over and checks the medication, and sure enough, taking a diuretic and potassium. And he says, yeah, it was you all along, and I can't believe I believe that story about your daughter. He says, your daughter's dead, and you know it. And he's like, dead? Well, why is she on TV? And then we see this newscast with Christine on the TV, and his nurse says, "No, no, Sydney, that's your granddaughter, Christine. Your daughter, Sarah, is dead." And then obviously he's got some memory issues going on, and he thinks that Christine is his daughter. And then Tom, he realizes what's going on here. He starts to head out towards the Ferrari, jumps in, and he gets approached by Christine. She says, come take a drive with me. And he starts to make his way over here. And at this point, he understands what she's capable of, so he pats her down and checks for a weapon, goes and jumps in her car, and then he kind of checks the back seat as well, just to make sure that he's not in danger. And then they start their drive, and we get a shot of them right here. And this was also on Round Top Drive. Take a look at this. Pop down there. Get a shot of them as they round this bend right here. And then we see them down on Kalakaua Avenue. And I'll jump back to 2009 here, and you see those little scallops right there on this front of this building here. That is right there. And they drive along Kalakaua, and she basically just admits to everything. Admits to hiring Makua, admits to giving Henry diuretics, admits to giving Rick diuretics, and Tom, he just lets her talk, and just talk and talk. And then we see them turn off of Kalakaua. They start to head back up to Mr. Dollinger's place. We get another shot of them coming up Round Top Drive right here. They arrive back at the house, and in this frame, they would have been right over here. And Tom says, so that's it? You're just going to let me go to the police? And she says, it's your word against mine. No one's going to believe you. And then he reaches into the back seat of the car and he ejects a tape from the camera. He says, well, the picture's not going to look that great, but the audio should come through loud and clear. And she panics and she floors the car, starts to race down the road. And Tommy grabs the wheel. He's trying to control the vehicle, hits the brake, and brings them to a stop right here. And this was also filmed on Round Top Drive. We'll go to this exact spot. Right down here. Let's see, let's go to 2009. And car comes to a stop right there, overlooking the city. And he takes the keys out of the car as well. And Christine, she knows it's over. Next, we get our final scene of the episode. Tom, he's competing in the surf ski race, paddling his little heart out there. And then he paddles up to the finish line in 58th place. And Rick bet against him, and he's walking along the beach, counting his winnings. He won big time. And here's where we get one of the neatest scenes in this episode. As Rick is walking along the beach, let's see, let me turn this and match this up a little bit. You see this gentleman start to walk down, this guy right here, see him start to walk down towards Rick, and he gives him some money. And we'll take a look at that real quick. Coming down, reaches out, and pays Rick there. This is Mario Minetti. This is Larry Minetti's dad. Larry's folks were on the island during the taping of this episode, and Larry worked his dad in as an extra in this scene. So cool. And then you'll see Mario turn and start to walk back up the beach this way. And as he turns, Larry reaches out and pats him on the back. And then you can see he's got a giant smile on his face. And Rick, he turns and you can see he's got a big grin on his face. He knows what they just pulled off. And then you see Mario walk up this way and turns and looks right at the camera. So awesome. And then, Rick, he continues to walk towards TC. Again, giant smile on his face. Tom comes up and he's like, how did I do? TC says, 58th place. And he's stunned. He can't believe he did that poorly in the race. These two are cracking up about it. And Rick says, drinks are on me at the club. And then they turn and they walk off. Tom, he starts to clean up his gear. And Charlie comes down, turns and tells Magnum, hey, great job. And Magnum's like, 58th, that's not great. And he's like, oh no, you solved the case, and everyone's coming back to the club and everything's back to normal. Tom, he turns and he says, Charlie, for a while there I thought you were behind all this. And Charlie's like, me? And Tom says, yeah. He says, you were always around, you're always making some ominous point about the situation. And then Tom says, but something about that just didn't feel right. And Charlie, he says, well, maybe some good power was trying to point you in the right direction. And then all of a sudden we get this ruby flash in Charlie's eye. And Tom, he's stunned. He can't believe what he's seeing. And then he just turns and stares at the camera. And then the episode ends on this frame right here. Again, if anyone recognizes any of the unidentified locations, or if anyone has a call sheet from this episode, please comment below. And that is a wrap on The Curse of the King Kamehameha Club. The next episode that I cover in this filming location series will be Thicker Than Blood. Hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it. If so, please like and subscribe. And lastly, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.